Okay, everybody, welcome to today's webinar, the Summertime People Analytics Checklist. We know it's a busy time of year for everybody, so I appreciate those of you who've taken some time out to join us this morning for the webinar. We hope to make it worth your while. So quick agenda, what we're going to cover today. First, I'll give you just a little background on TrenData, who's sponsoring today's webinar. Then we'll talk a little bit about the kind of productivity and needs that go on with differing companies during the summer season. We'll go through what we've put together as our summertime checklist of things to check on with your workforce population. We'll talk a little bit how to manage some of the dips in productivity that come about this time of year. And then we'll go into a little bit of what People Analytics can do to help you forecast and manage those dips in productivity. We'll end it with a brief demonstration of the TrenData People Analytics solution targeted at summer forecasting. And then I will answer whatever questions anybody submits. Again, submit them using the chat capability. And if you think of it during the presentation, not the end, submit it through the chat anyway, but I'll cover them all at the end of the session. So a little background on TrenData. TrenData is a cloud-based solution company. We provide organizations the ability to generate advanced and predictive analytics by unifying and trending key workforce metrics from multiple HR and finance software applications. So we bring all that data together to give you a holistic look at your workforce tied to dollars and cents, and give you the ability to make the best judgments and plans possible going forward in the future. We're headquartered in Plano, Texas. If you're familiar with the Dallas or the DFW area, we're just the northern tip of Dallas, so very commutable to Dallas, home to a lot of great corporations. The company was founded by myself. I'm the CEO, Tom McKeown, and Mon Hamden, who is the chair of our advisory board. Mon was the founder of a very successful talent management company, HR Smart. And most of our senior executive team, myself included, were from HR Smart, a company that was in talent management for almost 15 years. And we sold the company about 2.5 years ago to a larger software company, Deltek. TrenData, though, we have a very large customer base across many industries. So if you look into the future and moving forward with something with TrenData, we have plenty of customers to let you talk about our solution to. But enough of the commercial. I know everybody's here for the topical content here, so I want to stick to that. So here we are, summertime. It's upon us again. It's a great time of year. Vacations and everything, but as we all know, from a business standpoint, productivity tends to dip a little in the summer because of a lot of factors such as vacation and such. A study by an organization called Captivate, pretty consistent with others that you might have seen. Productivity from workforces tends to go down about 20% during the summer months. Attendance dips around 19%, and project turnaround times tend to get much longer in the summer, probably due to the lack of workforce presence and maybe a little of the mindset, but project turnaround times tend to increase, and this study about an average of 13%. So a couple of things moving into the summer to kind of keep in mind as you particularly as a person in management, whether it's line management, HR management, C-suite management, to keep in mind to help you get through the summer months without suffering from that dip in productivity. So a couple of things we're going to go through here on our checklist. First one is to manage planned timed off. People want to take a lot of vacations in the summer, and that's great, but you want to make sure that you get ahead of it and don't find yourself shorthanded. It's also a big time where you get a lot of unplanned time off, people calling in sick, or maybe a little absent-mindedness at work where productivity slips. So we're going to actually target those in two different ways, talk about planned and unplanned time off. And we'll talk about strategies to plug those holes as you try to make sure that productivity stays up as you manage vacations and absences, and also how you would staff up, particularly if you're a seasonal business that does a good chunk in your business. Now, we talked about productivity going down for certain companies, but if you're one of those seasonal companies where summer is a big time of year for you, you're not only looking to ebb productivity, but you want to make sure that you can bring on the extra staff to accommodate the increased business you're going to encounter. And then also being able to use summer not only as a time to stave off a dip in productivity, but also do some strategic planning for the remainder of the year and the future of your company. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation as well. So let's start with planned time off. It's time off that people ask for. Usually it's something targeted for vacation, and summer, of course, is a great time for vacation. Mostly due to the fact that there are a lot of family type things where your kids are off for the summer, so it's a good time to plan family vacations, whether you're going somewhere or just planning big reunions, maybe staycations. Also, parents are often having to deal with children going away to school, so maybe late in August you have to take a couple of days off or a week off to be able to move your kids into school or get that last trip in before your children go away. It's actually very close to me right now. I have a daughter graduating from high school going to college, and we'll be moving her in late August, so I have to plan around that. So a lot of things that would cause people to increase the amount of time off they're taking in the summer. First thing is management. You have to understand, and I think most managers do, is that employees do need vacation. Recharging the batteries. A survey done by SHRM, and this is pretty regular year to year, cited that having people take vacation actually increases performance. That's what 75% of managers said. Going away for a while, recharging your batteries and coming back refreshed is actually better than just working all the time. It also increases job satisfaction. So in addition to increased performance, it's a good way to make sure that you have increased retention. People like their job, they're going to stay around, and the culture is a big part of it. Remarkably, even though in the U.S. we have about half the amount of allotted vacation as is offered in European and other parts of the world, 55% of Americans don't use their allotted vacation, whether that's employee meant or it's more employees not taking vacation than management denying them vacation. But in a lot of companies where you get paid for the vacation days, this amounts to about a $224 million a year charge. I think it's $1 billion a year charge to corporations on having to pay for unused vacation. Remarkably, Europe, which offers about twice as many paid vacation days as the U.S., they have about 90% of their population does use their allotted vacation. So in addition to knowing that people need vacation, there's probably an argument to encourage people to take vacation. But the flip side of that in managing is, you need to have enough staff. So as the summer months are coming and you know that people are going to take vacations, there is a certain amount of forecasting that needs to take place so that you can make sure you have enough people to do the job while parts of your staff are on vacation. Now I talk a little bit about forecasting. Whether you're in sales, production, whatever. Part of your business management duties is to be able to forecast, and you need to take that same philosophy and apply it towards managing vacations, particularly in a high time point like the summer. So you need to pretty much calculate what's how many people you have in your department and what is the minimum to be able to continue to function properly and profitably and effectively. And then start, maybe getting ahead of it, a couple of weeks or months before that heavy vacation season starts, look around your employee population and try and figure out, who might have more narrow windows of when they can take vacation. Often it's people with family, maybe perhaps people with relatives to care for, whatever. But being able to identify, without getting, too much into people's personal information, but who has the narrow windows of vacation? Generally, as I say, people with families or taking family vacations generally need to take some in the summer to be able to enjoy time with their family. And then also being able to see, who are the people who have more flexibility to be able to take vacations at different times. You don't want to be in the position where you're denying people vacations because you have to maintain staff. So maybe getting out a little ahead of that again, being able to find out, who might be able to take vacation this week versus another week, and it might be in an opportunity to incent whether put them on a certain project that they want or whatever it is that can get you to basically give you some options to be able to spread out the vacation so you're not without proper staff for any prolonged period of time. It is important wherever you work, whether it's a company large or small, though, to have a documented vacation policy. It's often it can be a difficult conversation if you can't let someone take vacation at a particular time, or you have someone who may have maxed out their vacation, and there are certain rules that people want to take additional vacations, whether you let them bank it or you charge it. But it's always good to give your managers a documented vacation policy, and also train them how to deal with certain situations, particularly this one, being able to get out ahead of it so you avoid any problems. But have a documented vacation policy and be able to forecast vacations, particularly as high seasons come along. Now, on the flip side of that, there's also a big time of year where you have a lot of unplanned time off, more likely concerned as absences. So, there is, of course, the people who call in absent for, viable reasons. It's a allergy time of year and stuff like that as well. But there is quite a bit of, people who will, use their absences to tack an extra day onto the weekend, or to take advantage of someone calling them at the last minute for a great trip. So this is, a bit of a different situation having to deal with. A survey done by Monster.com a couple of years ago said that roughly 20% of workers, admitted in the survey that they will call in sick in the summer to really enjoy the summer, not calling in because they're actually sick. Whether, as I said, it's I grew up and worked the first part of my life in New York, and we were very close to Long Island where all the beaches were, and people were constantly tacking a day on. And, I had people call in Monday morning where they couldn't quite get back that day, but, they were calling in sick and, giving another reason. I kind of knew why they were taking the time off. But there are other reasons, daycare might have not been able to show up that day, and two working parent home, someone might have had to stay home. So a lot of reasons. But it's something you have to deal with. And the big problem with this and unplanned absenteeism is you're not ready for it when it happens. If you know someone is going to take a vacation, you can already start the mental forecasting of shifting people around and putting them in the right place. But when someone calls in absent, you have to move bodies that day. It takes a lot of time just to put the right person in the right place. The manager has to take time away from what they're doing. There's probably an initial hour or two at the beginning of the day where, whether it's sales, service, or production, where something's not getting done as you're trying to find the body to give all or whatever time to that. So this is a much bigger problem actually than the vacation part of it, is dealing with people, the increased absences over a summer. Now, again, it's better if you can get out in front of certain things like this. So often in the summer, it's just a lot harder to engage your employees because they're so attracted to the better weather, the better opportunities, more people being off. That kind of draws them away from work. So there's different ways in engagement that you might be able to get a better handle on potential absenteeism. The typical work week is 5 days, 8 hours a day. You might have some employees that aren't compound again by as rigid a schedule, who might be just as productive if you let them work Monday through Thursday in a 10-hour day and give them the Friday off or for the summer. You might also, we wouldn't do this here in Dallas where it's 102 today, but you might also consider meetings taking place outside or somewhere where it's a lot more pleasant than just stuck into a conference room. On one hand, that might contribute to people's absent-mindedness, but I think being able to do that sort of thing, where you can kind of integrate with the better weather and the time of year, might again increase engagement and make it less likely that people are going to call in sick. It might be just a question of work-life balance. Parents who can work during the year and have their kids off during the summer. It's a big thing, whether even if they're teenagers and you have to leave them home alone or something. So it might be a good time to explore further use of some of the remote technologies like we're using right here, GoToMeeting and some of the others, where you can let certain people who have a draw to be able to work from home and tie into meetings and projects via remote technologies that can then possibly give more productivity than the someone who might just have to take off and then is not productive at all. The key again is getting to the point where you can get a better handle or know when things are coming. If absences can be turned into planned remote working, or knowing that someone's not going to be there and being able to get their time at a different day of the week, maybe gives you a little bit of a better handle and can allow you to get through those absences and not have so much of a productivity dip. Now, on the flip side of that, you've got often, as I talked about a little earlier, is some businesses actually need to augment their staffing during the year. Mostly, it's a lot of those businesses where we're taking off to go to, whether it's amusement parks, the beaches, the movies. These companies actually have to staff up during the summer. So they actually not only need to fight off dips, but they need to be able to bring in staff. And often they're recruiting short-term employees, people who they're only going to need for that 2 to 3 month time in the summer. Now, there are a lot of good sources for recruiting, part-time food workers or theme park and stuff like that workers you can go to often to find workers. But it's much often better if you can have, based on past experience, if you're doing this every summer, to have pools of employees that particularly look for this kind of work already in your systems, where you can look at, for example, not only recruiting students to fill positions, but often teachers as well. Many public school teachers actually have second jobs. They take them in the summer and regularly look forward to them. So if you can actually keep track of these type of individuals in your systems, in the next year that they're going to be looking for something, go right to them and even work out the relationships ahead of time. I think of all the summer jobs I had when I was in high school, late high school and college. The manager I had there very often was a public school teacher who was working a summer job. So being able to have the places to go to where you can staff up for these particular opportunities, both within your system and knowing the right job sources to go to get them. Another more long-term opportunity with particularly summer time staffing is to bring on interns. I've worked in both large and small technology companies where we bring in interns, mostly because they tend to be very intelligent and ambitious when they come in to do more work. So it's not only are you getting quality workers, but you're also getting a look at some future employees, being able to train people to do parts of jobs that you're going to need entry-level people to do every year. So they're not only profitable, you're getting a jump on employee training while they're on board taking care a couple of years, I brought in interns just to do administrative staff, and they always tend to go the extra mile. You ask them for A, and they give you A, B, C, and D. So I've had a really good experience with interns. They're profitable while you're training them. You build loyalty, and also it's a good mentorship opportunity for potential managers in your organization. I've used this often as an executive in companies where I've got someone who's an individual contributor interested in being a manager in the future. It's the best type of training you can give them is you assign them a mentor to an intern, and it's a good degree of management, and usually the individual is very enthusiastic about taking on because it's an expansive use of their abilities, and also it puts them on a kind of a management track. So it's a good opportunity for that. And also, of course, interns being from a new generation we've always put them on social media strategies, because often that's where we get our training as companies on how to use some of the newer social media technologies out there. Put a figure down here from the National Association of Colleges. Almost half of interns brought into companies turn into full-time employees for those companies. So you're not only plugging holes in the summer, you're also grooming a great source of future employees for your company to advance in the future and bring on new staff as you continue to grow with trained and educated talent. So, just a quick look at some of the things that we talked about here. Being able to manage planned time off, particularly forecasting it, and being able to smooth out the parts of the time period where you're going to hopefully not have too many people off. Some strategies and activities you can do to combat unplanned time off, maybe to bring that down a little, or at least know when it's coming, and get the sources of work in on other days. How you plug that up, and also good ways to staff up in the seasonal environment. And then again, using this time of year to plan through interns and other types of research for the remainder of the year. So, how can a technology solution, help you with this? Always the first is it gives you a great visualization of your situation. Again, I always talk about you can run a report from an HRIS or a talent system, that looks like a spreadsheet, a big list of things, and that really doesn't give you the picture of how things are. Being able to visualize that on a dashboard, very cleanly and simply as to, when are people going to take off? What's the makeup of the people who are going to take off? What does this bring me down to? Being able to drill down on the outliers. If this particular week I'm going to have 50 people leaving, what's their skill set? What areas are they from? And is there a way to kind of spread this out? Also, being able to connect this to dollars. Often in HR, we're able to show statistics like this, but it really has an impact when you say, we're going to have 20% of our employee population taking off this summer, and unless we have a way of forecasting and combating it, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars. So being able to get all of this, out of a system is very useful to be able to combat this, kind of summertime slump. So with that, I was going to just jump in, as I said, do just kind of a quick look at our people analytics solution. And I always promise not to get too salesy in these. Really what I want to do is give you a look at what a tool can do to help you get to being able to combat these things with some simple methodologies where a tool can bring that to light. So here we're looking at a kind of a centralized people analytics dashboard, partially built out. We've got a few metrics on here: number of employees in the population, how many each manager has, how much it costs to bring in a new employee. We've got some figures on source of hire, turnover, and one over here, which we'll get to in a minute, which shows the average amount of absences in a company throughout the time of year. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But first, I wanted to talk about the first item we covered, vacation. So one thing you want to be able to keep an eye on is who's got vacation coming up, and is there an alarm there? So using a natural language search in the TrenData solution. We don't have to step through a bunch of menus to get to a particular solution. I can quickly just type in something in my own language, number of employees taking summer vacation. And by clicking that, it takes me to a graph that shows company-wide who's taking what days of vacation in the summer. So I can see coming up right away, you've got the 8 weeks in July and August. You can see that we do have a fair amount of people taking vacation. We do have a lot that aren't taking vacation. I can look at this in a percentage as well as in numbers, and I can see that almost 2/3 of my population don't plan on taking any summer vacation. That tells me, so I've got about 1/3 of my employee population that is. So if I want to keep regular track of this, I can just add this to that my main dashboard that I see when I log in. So I can call this anything I want, employees taking summer vacation, and I can save it. And as I move over to my dashboard, I can kind of put it wherever I want. So I might want to just put it right down here. So as I'm trying to figure out this problem over the next couple of weeks, I can come and look and see possibly if there are any spikes. Now, again, being able to look at this from a holistic top corporate-wide view is one thing, but there's also the ability to drill down on it and see, is there something specific where I might have problems? So, for example, if I touch the drill down here, I can look at it not only from this corporate view, but I might want to look at perhaps a particular area. So maybe if I wanted to see in the state of Texas, and this is actually a banking company, so if I looked at the state of Texas in the mortgage department, I can drill down and see that my entire organization plans on taking vacation this summer. And as I look at how it's spread out, it's not particularly looking good for me. I see right here I have almost 65% of my department plans on taking vacation the week of July 9th through July 13th. So I'm going to be exceedingly shorthanded that week. I can narrow down particularly on that one if I want to, and take a look at whether there are some people in there that I can take a look at and maybe ask them to take vacation at a different time. So it's like 10 employees, summer management, summer staff. And we can also look at seniority. I can arrange this view if I want to show other factors, particularly that might be more relevant in making this decision. But maybe I want to look at it, if I have 4 managers, maybe I can ask 1 or 2 of them to maybe push off as well, but also see what kind of staffing requirements I need. So one quick look to be able to drill down and see, am I going to have any particular problems? So that's one thing to take a look on the vacations. Now let me move back to the absences. Now, as I can see from this graph that I have up here, which tells me not only what absences I have here, but also who's remote and who is an office-based personnel. Before I kind of drill down on that, I talked a little bit about tying this into revenue and financial statistics. So what I could do is see, well, is this having an effect on the company's bottom line? So amongst my many metrics, I have some that deal with the finance of the company. So I can actually go up here and click and see that monthly revenue for the company right now for this past month is about $40,000 a month per employee. If I go and click the analytics, it's going to give me what that is for the last year. As you can see, there's probably a little dip right here. I'm not sure if that lines up, but let me add that to my dashboard. And if I line it up next to the absences, I can see that that dip in revenue per employee happens in the summer when I have the increased amount of absences. It does have an impact on revenue. So what can I do and drill down a little deeper in this? So I can see right here that I do have some anomalies that I look at. So let me expand this graph here, and I can look at it a little bit more largely. And it tells me that the people who are increasingly having absences in the main summer months are more office-based personnel than remote-based personnel. That's where the largest spike is. Now, maybe I could let some of these people work from home, but how good is that for the business? Well, let's look at performance of office space versus remote base. So if I go and do a quick search again, I can go and see and find a graph that shows me here are my remote employees. These are people who do work remotely. These are people who do not work remotely. The average performance score of a remote employee is 3.52, whereas for someone who does not work remote, it's actually 3.29. So my remote employees, at least from this view, can have a higher performance rating than my employees in office. So maybe that's a little ammunition I can have to decide maybe I can let some more people work from home, particularly during the summer months, to make them more productive and also reduce that drag on financial productivity. So as I go back to my dashboard here, there's a couple other things I wanted to show. We did talk about spiking up recruiting, and particularly during the summer months. So here's a graph that tells us during the year when where we get our most qualified candidates from. It says we get about 36% of our people from job boards in the last month, and about 16% from LinkedIn. If I go and apply the analytics to that, see if that's a consistent pattern throughout the year, I can see that it pretty much is. The job boards is constantly my largest source of hire, and I can even look at that back historically and see that over a 5-year period, that is the case as well. Now, we talked a little bit about bringing data from multiple sources into the platform. So maybe I can take a look at this a little deeper and see where am I getting my best performing employees from. So if I drill down onto the same graph based on performance and look at people who score the highest on their performance reviews, which on our system we use a 1 to 5, but you can put whatever performance based you use as well into here. I can see that once I eliminate everybody except the high performers, I now have a clearer picture that even though I do get a fair amount of high performers from job boards, I tend to get more from LinkedIn, and competing with that also is employee referrals. So maybe this tells me whether it's for summertime employees or for annual employees that recruiting from LinkedIn and employee referrals might be a better source. And you can also include in there, as I talked, other sources, whether it's your school or campus-based recruiting, or pre-hired sources can also be an option here as well. Now, final thing I just wanted to show everybody is the predictive capabilities of the TrenData system. So we talked a little bit about forecasting into the future. I'm actually going to use turnover for this example. So it shows right here that we have about a turnover rate of about 4.2% last month, which is pretty high for any company. If I go into my analytics, it will show me that turnover has in fact been on the rise over the last couple of months. And again, I can look at this as in values or percentage, and I can also drill down on it if I wanted to look at turnover by separation type, whether it was voluntary termination or involuntary. I can see that that as well has been on the rise in numbers. So most of the people who are leaving are it's voluntary turnover. Same thing if I move to performance, I can see an alarming increase of high performers exiting the company. And you might want to be able to look, what is the cause of this? What we've also included here is what we call an events overlay, where I can click here and see that, well, we acquired a company back in September of last year, and it was really not too long after that that the whole rate started climbing, particularly that high performer exodus. So maybe people are seeing lacking in terms of promotions and management. What you can also do is go back maybe a little further in time and see if you've had any like situations in previous years. So I can see back here, we acquired a company a couple of years ago in 2015, which caused a spike in turnover. And so that next year we put some organizational initiatives in place. We gave raises a little above the average. We put in a telecommuting policy, a management training program, and turnover did tick back down. Let's see how that forecasts out into the future of the organization. So if I go into the predictive view, what this tells me is where turnover is going to keep going if I do not do anything at all. It's going to actually kind of tap out at about 5.5% and kind of remain steady there, maybe ticking down a little. But that's monthly turnover. If you aggregate that 60% a year, that's not a very healthy turnover rate. Let's see if there's something I can do to make that start going down a little quicker. So I showed you before that this is a person view down here, individuals. I can also jump to a summary view, which will give me some high-level statistics in the organization. High performer turnover, productivity, loss, recruiting costs. And if I go into this modeling capability, it highlights areas where I can actually make some changes to see if that will actually affect turnover going forward. So right now, as an average for the whole organization, the average salary, it's pretty good. It's about $136,000 a year. That's including executives. So this isn't a drill down view, just the entire organization. What would happen if I gave everybody an average of a $5,000 raise, made that 141? You can see that turnover went down from 5.5 to 5.3. This is a 1,000-person company, so I just spent $5 million and got very little return for that. So maybe I won't do that just yet. As you can see, that employee telecommuting policy seemed to be very popular. I've got over a third of my employees now working remotely. If I were to increase that, say to 45%, it does bring turnover down about a little over a point, 1.1. It has this effect of bringing down both the high performer and the non-high performer turnover, but it really, that high performer turnover is still very high. So that might be a call to try something else. Now, we did point out that we put in that management training program a few years ago, but yeah, it looks like we've been very stingy with it. Less than 7% of the population, at least to date, has been put of high performers has been put into that program. Maybe that's why they're starting to leave, and it's not the in addition to the fear of additional people coming in from the merger. So what happens if I double the population in that particular instance? So if I move that to 15%, you can see that really takes a bite into the high performer turnover, and the intelligence from the AI engine in our system tells us if you want to continue to bring that down, you need to gradually start increasing the amount of people that you put into this system. And as you can see, high performer turnover starts going way down to the point where it's even lower than the overall turnover rate, which I think would make most in management very happy. So maybe the two things I'll do, if maybe the salary wasn't the right thing to do, maybe let a few more people work from home. But really, the money I might have spent in raises, if I put it into the high performer, if I increase the amount of professional development, that's what will really give me the increased performance. And I can look at that again in a drill down if I wanted to see just by performance. You can see the high performer really trending down much more than the overall population. So I actually saw that I had a question I'll actually answer while I'm still on this screen because it's relevant as to this. People are asking, where does the data come from? So in this particular system, we have a combination of data. So we can pretty much, through an ERP-based, through an API-based system or ODBC, we can tap into pretty much any HR or finance or ERP system you have, and data can be updated real time. What we've also put together is our TUF. It's called our TrenData Universal File Format. And this is actually just a CSV file that you can output data to and upload right into the system. and you can have pretty much about 20 plus out-of-the-box metrics, many of which I've been showing right here to move the system. So yeah, actually you can have a lot of metrics, even if you just pull it all right from your HRIS system. And as I said, you can pull it from your HRIS, your talent system, your payroll, recruiting, doesn't matter. So with that, I'm going to move back to the presentation. So hang on just a second, I can go back to that. And I did get a few questions that came in. So one is on the cost per hire, any particular industry that you've targeted. On this particular one, we were dealing with the banking industry. So the figures there were targeted towards how much it costs to bring in talent to banks and finance industry. But there are great metrics out there everywhere that you can choose to. And we in the implementation of our system, we always help people get the right benchmarks and everything to plan what to target against when implementing a system. Another question, database if employees were putting in time off. Well, it's basically coming out of the, I hope I'm answering the question correctly. It's basically data that's coming out of your time and attendance system where employees have put in time off and the system's able to pick that up. It might be coming from a different system, but usually that's where we get the time off data and are able to forecast it out in the system and allow you to do that type of visualization and see what is the best use of moving people around to get the optimum amount of people working at the right time. Okay, I have another question here. How is TrenData priced? TrenData is priced either by user or unlimited user. So generally we find that if it's something that's just going to be used in the HR department, it's easier to price by user regardless of the population. So, if you have, 5,000 employees and you're going to have 5 people use it in the HR and finance department, we can sell it to you 5 users. If the organization is going to take the solution and they're going to want line managers using it, because this is very customizable for the views, and you're going to roll it out to a lot of people, we tend to recommend you get the unlimited license, which then we flip and we charge by population, and then you can have a user regardless of without a number on them. So we kind of go both ways to accommodate how organizations are going to use the system. Another question, do we provide consulting as well? Yes, we do. We do domain consulting on predictive and workforce analytics, so we can help you set up your processes so that when you use the system, I always like to say, a system automates a process, generally doesn't invent the process, just makes it go faster and much more visual. So we can help you put the right process in place so that when you implement the system, it's very easy to use. But kind of moving from that topic, we do offer a free 45-day trial of the system, because if you use that TUF file, we can get you up and going on some pretty commanding metrics and analytics very quickly. So there's no contract to do a trial. If you want to do an NDA, we can do that as well, so that you are guarded on what's done with your data. But there's no charge, no contract. We'll provide you free support as if you were a full-time client during the length of the trial. So if anybody is interested, you can either email us at marketing@trendata.com, or if you want to just send me a chat here, I can hand that over and we can get a trial site set up for you. If you do the marketing@trendata.com email, just use this code here, TD-6-2018. We'll still give you the trial if you don't, but that helps us identify who's calling in. I mean, what was the source of your exposure to us and why you decided to go for the trial, and it helps us target our marketing activity. So that being the case, if there are no more questions, okay, well, I would like to thank everybody. I know it's a busy time of year, so I appreciate you coming and joining the webinar. I hope it was beneficial for you. We do have these webinars every month, so please visit our website at, if you look under the resources tab, it has our events where we show what trade shows we're going to be at, what webinars we have coming. So please go there, and we hope to see you on some of the future webinars. And we do also have recordings of all of our past webinars, including this one, which will probably be posted in the next couple of days. So, okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and I hope to speak with any and all of you again sometime in the future about TrenData or maybe just topical stuff on webinars. So thank you very much.